welcome to part two, and I'm going to talk about some more ways that you can tell formal writing from informal writing. And of course, these are strategies you can also use to make your writing seem more formal. Okay, first person means referring to yourself with pronouns like I or me, myself, even us, we, ourselves, etc. And this is a problem for two reasons. One of them is just that it's less common in academic writing to use these words. And second of all, and it's related to the first reason, you don't use these words very often because most academic writing is not about you. When you're asked to do an academic paper, usually you'll be asked to talk about something else, some theory, some other people, the characters in some story. And in academic writing classes, after the first or second paper, usually you're not asked to talk about yourself anymore, and definitely not if you're writing journal articles or something. Um, so, I have a rule of thumb, a general rule about using the first person, which is if the essay is not about you, like you are not the topic of the essay, and you can take yourself out of a sentence, then try to take yourself out as much as possible. Do not put yourself in sentences that are not about you. Okay. Um, so this can be off topic because if your paper is about Hamlet, but you start the sentence with I, then it sounds like you are the topic of that sentence, right? It sounds like you might be talking about yourself. The essay might be about your thoughts, but it's not about your thoughts, it's about Hamlet, right? So it could sometimes seem to be off topic. It can also seem childish because children have difficulty seeing outside of their own perspective. If you keep putting yourself in sentences that are not about you, you can sound like that. You can sound like you can't imagine that there could be facts that are not related to your life. Okay. So, in a sentence like, I believe that Hamlet's affection for Ophelia was genuine, so this is about the play Hamlet, um, you can just take out the part that says, I believe. The essay is not about your beliefs, right? It's about Hamlet, or maybe about Ophelia, and making it about you changes what should be an argument or what should be a fact into just a person's opinion, and you don't want that. Okay. So, second person is using pronouns like you or yourself or your, um, and this can also be wrong for two different reasons. Um, so, they have to do with two different meanings of this word. When you use the word you, you usually are talking about one of two things. You could be talking directly to the listener, like, you sit down, okay? Or you listen carefully. So you're talking to one person in particular and you know who that person is. So addressing the audience is one way of using you, right? And this is not really appropriate for academic writing because, like we talked about before, you don't know who the reader is. You're supposed to imagine that it's someone who's smart and who can learn new things, but it's not someone that you know, not someone in your class. It's not even really your teacher. You're supposed to imagine you're writing for someone else. So saying you is a little bit strange when you don't know who you even is, right? Who you even are. I think is okay there. So, in this example, it says, as you remember from the previous section, Hamlet shows affection with his words. We don't know the reader. We don't know what the reader remembers. It's not not in our interests to try to describe the reader's thoughts when we know nothing about that person, right? So we don't want to say as you remember, but maybe something like as was shown, right? We can, of course, talk about the essay and say what was shown in the previous paragraph. We don't want to jump into the reader's mind and say, as you will remember. Okay. So that's one meaning of you, which is addressing the audience directly. There's another one, which is just basically an informal way of saying anybody. This is very common in casual English. And if you, the listener, are living in the United States, you probably hear this every day. People saying things like, um, You can't go to Walmart after 9 anymore because they're closed. That you was not you, that was anybody who wants to go to Walmart. Or they say, um, like, you can get sick at the airport now. And that you was not you, the listener, that was, again, anybody. Okay. This can be really obvious when they say, like, in China, you can't access Canvas, right? They mean in China, anybody can't access Canvas. Canvas is our LMS, of course, because it's blocked by the government. As in a sentence where you're using you to mean anybody, try to use a different pronoun or just a noun to be specific about who you're talking about. So in a sentence like this, and again, this is about Hamlet, when you meet your girlfriend's father, you usually try to impress him. This person means, in general, when people meet their girlfriend's father, they want to try to impress the father, right? But they use you, and you makes it sound really casual. So we're going to replace you with someone, right? And you have some freedom here. And it's probably better to choose a word that's specific to what you're talking about instead of just the word someone or anyone. Um, but you definitely don't want to use the word you here because you is very casual, especially the you that means anybody is very casual. Okay. So, on to other words. So, here's where the topic gets actually very large because um, this language issue is not just about one or two words. There are many, many words that fit this description. And that is that casual words in English, words that you hear more often in casual conversation, often have multiple meanings, and for that reason, they can be a little bit unclear. And we don't want to be unclear in academic writing. We want to be very precise and very clear. So look at these three uses of the word get, for example. Hamlet gets a relationship with Ophelia. He gets the crown from his father. He gets killed in the end. So the first is getting a type of relationship. The second is it says the crown, but the crown means he gets the position of king. And he gets killed. So in this case, get is just a version of passive voice, meaning someone killed him or kills him. Um, all of these could be different words, right? And we use get because get is a very convenient word. It means so many different things. If you look this word up in the dictionary, you'll see it has dozens of different meanings. But in academic writing, we want to be more precise. We don't want to be unclear about how Hamlet relates to Ophelia or what he got from his father, right? So we can use other words, more specific words, maybe these words. Establishes means more like he built a relationship. Inherits is when you get something from a family member who died, which is a very specific type of getting. And the last one isn't really more specific, but it is more formal. The get version of passive voice is more seen in informal speech and writing. And then the be verb version with is or are is more formal. And that brings me to the next topic. Some words are just more formal and there isn't really a clear reason why, but sometimes words can have a natural home. So you hear a word more often in a certain kind of speech or in a certain kind of context, and people just associate that word with that context. So then it can sound strange to hear the word in a different context. It can sound strange to hear the word wizard in a article in a medical journal or something like that, because that word is almost always just in fantasy movies, fantasy literature, things like that. And a lot of words have homes like this, not just wizard, even multiple words that seem to refer to the same thing can have natural different homes. And I have a tool that I recommend to students to find to find what is the home for any particular word, which is called COCA. And I have another video about that, but you can search for it. A lot of people do COCA videos on YouTube. So I recommend you use COCA to find any word, to find the natural home of any word that you're not really sure about. So in this example, in one movie version of Hamlet, he delivers his famous monologue in a tomb. Okay, that's true. The problem is this word movie, and you definitely know this word. You've heard this word more often than any other word that refers to this kind of media. But a better word for academic writing might be film. And on the next page, I'll show you why. I used COCA to look up a bunch of synonyms for the word movie. And let me show you where they usually are found. So the word movie itself usually occurs in spoken English and can occur in some other genres too. This is what the results screen of COCA looks like, by the way. Do you notice that the academic genre has about 1/10 as much of this word as the spoken genre? So this word is actually very common in spoken English, but not very common in academic English. And that tells us maybe we should also avoid using it in academic English. On the other hand, the word film, it's in blogs, it's on the web general, that's what that is. It's also in newspapers, and academic not as much, but just about half as much as it is in the most common genres for this word. The word movie, on the other hand, was in academic about 1/10 as much as its most common genre. Film is just about half, so it's better, right? It's safer, right? So web and newspapers most, but academic not. It's not clearly strange in academic writing. So let's look up some more synonyms. Motion picture. Motion picture is another synonym for movie. And if you look at where it occurs, it's less common overall, but mostly in newspapers. And then on the web, in spoken English and in academic writing, about 75% as much, which means it's almost definitely safe for academic writing. It doesn't sound strange in academic writing, right? So on the other extreme is this word flick. Flick also means movie, but if you look at who says flick, it's almost all characters in fiction, apparently. Gosh, I have to stay still so that thing disappears. Fiction, magazines, a little bit of blogs and other genres, but academic is by far the lowest here, right? About 1/10 as its most common genre. So that tells us we probably shouldn't use flick in academic writing. Again, flick means movie, but just because it means the same thing doesn't mean that those two words have the same home, right? So, all right. So that's it for this presentation. I hope you found it useful. These are the sources that I used, and yeah, good luck with your writing.